what's going on here? And then after that pop, we just saw him and his neck. We saw him fall backward.
I was the last one standing because I couldn't quite believe. I thought maybe it was a stunt.
Chaos on a university campus ends in a prominent conservative voice. Charlie Kirk shot dead.
I was at the event and I was 30 to 40 feet away and I heard the gunshot go off.
Charlie Kirk's final moments shocked the nation and ignited one of the most heated debates America has seen in years. Picture this, a packed auditorium at Utah Valley University, nearly 3,000 people gathered to hear the 31-year-old conservative firebrand speak. He was mid-sentence during a Q&A, leaning into the microphone as students pressed him with tough questions, when suddenly a sharp crack echoed across the venue. Within seconds, blood began gushing from his neck, and the crowd erupted in panic. Video footage, uncensored and raw, hit social media almost instantly, spreading across Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit like wildfire. People watched, horrified, as Kirk collapsed on stage, his body jerking, his wife and 2 young children screaming in the audience. He was rushed to the hospital, but the wound was catastrophic, and within hours, Charlie Kirk was pronounced dead. A person of interest was briefly detained but released, leaving law enforcement scrambling for answers. As the FBI investigates and theories swirl online, the shocking reality sets in. Charlie Kirk's voice, one that influenced millions, has been silenced in the most brutal and public way imaginable. Before we dive into the full story, the debates and the backlash, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the latest breakdowns of stories that are shaping our world.
Here you see the suspect ran behind that upper building. He's going to come out on the right, moves to this far right corner. As he does, he's going to climb off the edge and then drop down to the ground. As he did that, he left some palm impressions. There's some smudges and some places we're looking to collect DNA. There's a shoe imprint.
And he said the Civil Rights Act was a mistake, called vaccine requirements a medical apartheid, and said that empathy is a made-up word.
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year.
Now, let's unravel how this tragedy unfolded, why it's dividing the nation, and what Charlie Kirk's complicated legacy really means. Charlie Kirk was never a neutral figure. To some, he was a champion of liberty, a young conservative who used his platform to rally students and challenge what he called the failures of liberal ideology. To others, he was a dangerous provocateur, someone whose rhetoric encouraged division, hostility, and harm. His critics often pointed to statements that left jaws dropped, calling empathy a made-up word, dismissing the Civil Rights Act as a mistake, describing vaccine mandates as medical apartheid, and insisting that a few gun deaths a year were a price worth paying to protect the Second Amendment. These weren't slips of the tongue, they were the foundations of his brand, the bold and often shocking soundbites that made him famous or infamous, depending on who you asked.
Pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd. Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. Fantastic people they are. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on.
And yet that same unapologetic stance drew tens of thousands of loyal followers, from college students to seasoned political operatives. His events were packed, his podcast was widely downloaded, and his confrontations with opponents frequently went viral. But that night in Utah, the fire that fueled his rise collided with the volatility of America's climate, where political disagreements are no longer limited to arguments, they're spilling into violence. What makes this story even eerier is the fact that just hours before his death, Kirk had been embroiled in a fiery exchange with CNN's Van Jones over the stabbing of a young Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte. The incident itself was tragic, a 23-year-old woman killed on a light rail train, with questions swirling about the motive. Jones suggested race could have played a role, pointing to systemic patterns, while Kirk slammed the commentary as race-mongering and Marxist hysteria. He accused Jones of twisting facts to fit a narrative and even challenged him to appear on his show for a debate. The irony was chilling, because that challenge would never happen. Instead, the news of Kirk's death overshadowed their feud, leaving people stunned by the sudden turn of events. For Kirk's supporters, it underscored his courage in calling out what he believed were falsehoods. For his critics, it highlighted his relentless pursuit of conflict, even in moments of tragedy. The timing felt almost prophetic, like a man at war with words who would soon fall victim to violence himself. The aftermath of the shooting has been nothing short of explosive. Donald Trump was one of the first to react, posting a tribute online within hours. He not only called Kirk a giant of his generation, but also announced that he would be awarding him the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. The statement promised a very big crowd at the ceremony, framing Kirk as a martyr for conservative values and an inspiration for future generations. To his base, this was fitting. They saw Kirk as someone who fought against what he described as the erosion of American freedoms, someone willing to endure hate to defend his principles. To his critics, however, the praise felt like an attempt to rewrite his legacy, erasing the pain many communities said his words inflicted. Social media feeds split in half, hashtags demanding justice for Kirk trending alongside posts bluntly stating that his rhetoric caused irreparable harm, and sympathy should be reserved only for his children. The polarization was stark, and the debate over who Charlie Kirk truly was, hero or villain, burned hotter than ever. And then there's the chilling reality of how public his death was. Eyewitnesses described the chaos in vivid detail. Students ducking under chairs, screams echoing in the auditorium, people rushing for the exits as security scrambled to assess the threat. The shot came from roughly 200 yards away, fired from a rooftop. That detail has raised serious questions about campus safety and the security of public events in an era where politics feels more dangerous than ever. Some lawmakers immediately seized the moment to call for stricter gun control, pointing to the precision of the shot as proof of the risks posed by high-powered firearms. Others argued the focus should instead be on restoring civility in political discourse, warning that toxic rhetoric is laying the groundwork for these eruptions of violence. The debate has only deepened the sense that America is at a crossroads, caught between the right to bear arms and the desperate need to prevent bloodshed at public gatherings. But sympathy for Kirk has not been universal. In fact, many voices online have been brutally clear. They don't mourn the man, they mourn only for his children. Critics highlighted the very policies and statements Kirk championed, connecting them to suffering across the country. How many young people, they asked, died by suicide after being targeted by anti-LGBTQ rhetoric? How many women faced dangerous pregnancies without access to safe abortions because of the laws he fought to strengthen? How many hate crimes were excused under the banner of free speech he so fiercely defended? For these critics, Kirk's death did not erase his record. It only cemented the contradictions of his legacy. Sympathy, they argued, belongs only to the innocent lives impacted by his words, not the man who delivered them. Yet even in the harshest critiques, there was an underlying acknowledgement. Violence is not the answer. No matter how much people may have despised his views, few were willing to say he deserved to be gunned down in front of his wife and children. The conversation also turned inward, toward the fragility of American democracy itself. Commentators warned that this shooting was more than the death of one man. It was a symptom of a political environment teetering on collapse. When disagreements turn into assassinations, when audiences fear attending a speech, when children watch their father die on stage, it's a signal that the system has broken down. And while some doubled down on guns as the problem, others pointed at the steady normalization of hate, hostility, and violence in everyday discourse. It wasn't just Charlie Kirk, they argued. It could be anyone, any speaker, any politician, any public figure who dares to take the stage. The message resonated. If America doesn't course correct, tragedy like this won't be the last. Amid the outrage and mourning, conspiracy theories began bubbling up. Some online users speculated the shooter could have been a scapegoat, someone hired to carry out the act and deflect blame. Others claimed Kirk's high-profile clashes made him a target of a wider agenda, suggesting the incident wasn't just random but orchestrated. These theories, while unverified, have only added to the noise, fueling distrust of law enforcement and government agencies. The fact that an initial person of interest was detained and then released has only emboldened those suspicions. With no confirmed suspect, the uncertainty is feeding a storm of speculation, and until answers arrive, the rumors will continue to grow. For many, the most haunting part of this story is the human cost. Kirk's children, who reportedly witnessed the shooting, are now left to grow up without a father. His wife, once his partner in every public battle, is left a widow in the harshest spotlight. Supporters grieve the loss of a man they saw as a warrior for freedom, while critics remain resolute in their condemnation of his rhetoric. The duality is painful, one family's tragedy colliding with a nation's political fault lines. It raises the uncomfortable question, can we separate the man from his words? Can we grieve the father while holding accountable the activist? Or has the polarization of American politics erased that nuance completely? As the dust settles, one truth becomes clear. Charlie Kirk's death has become more than a personal tragedy. It is now a national flashpoint, a symbol of everything that divides America. He once said that some deaths were worth it if it meant preserving the Second Amendment. But when his own life was taken in a storm of bullets, that philosophy became a grim reality. Supporters now frame him as a martyr, a man who died standing by his beliefs. Detractors frame him as a cautionary tale, proof of the dangers of weaponized rhetoric. Both sides may never agree, but both are left staring at the same undeniable fact. Charlie Kirk is gone, and the America he leaves behind is angrier, more divided, and more uncertain than ever before. In the weeks ahead, the investigation will shape how this tragedy is remembered. If a suspect is identified and a motive confirmed, it could either solidify the narrative of a politically motivated assassination or reveal something more complex, perhaps personal, that intersected with Kirk's public life. Until then, every theory fills the vacuum. Supporters warning of targeted attacks on conservative voices, critics insisting the toxic culture Kirk himself helped foster played a role, and everyday Americans left uneasy about what this means for the future of free speech. The lingering footage online keeps the moment alive, replayed again and again, reminding the country how fragile life and order can be. For the people who admired him, there is a call to double down on his mission. For those who opposed him, there is a plea to learn from his death without glorifying the man. Either way, the question remains, is America ready to confront the violence simmering beneath its political surface, or will Charlie Kirk's story become just another headline in a cycle of outrage and silence? What we do know is that Charlie Kirk's death is already reshaping conversations about politics, safety, and legacy. He was a polarizing figure who built a brand on conflict, yet even in death, he sparks more questions than answers. His supporters will remember him as a fighter who never bowed to pressure. His detractors will point to the pain his words left behind. But in between the extremes lies a more haunting reality. 2 children who lost their father, a family forever marked, and a nation confronted with its own contradictions. The debates, the arguments, the accusations will rage on, but none of them will bring him back. And as the political world prepares tributes, protests, and policy debates, the rest of us are left to wonder if a man so determined to protect liberty could not be protected himself. What does that mean for the rest of us? Charlie Kirk may be gone, but the storm he leaves behind is only just beginning.